Good evening, councillors, officers and members of the public in the gallery and those listening at home. Welcome to this meeting of Rother District Council at the Town Hall. I will start with agenda item number 1, which are the minutes of the last meeting. Can we approve those, please? Thank you. And I shall sign. Agenda item number 2, apologies for absence.
We've had apologies from Councillors Creaser, Gordon, Girwan, and McGurk and Timpey.
And members attending remotely tonight, we have, I think, Councillors Cooper, G1, Stanger and Ganley. Is that right? And Councillor Maynard, I'm told, and Councillor Maynard. And a reminder that those members attending remotely are unable to move, second or vote on any matter in accordance with our hybrid formal meeting protocol. Agenda item number 3, disclosure of interests and dispensations. Are there any disclosures by members of interest and any dispensations in matters on the agenda? If so, please declare the nature of any such interest and under the terms of the Code of Conduct. Are there? Yes.
As Chair of the Housing Company, item 7.
And that will be redeclared when we get to the item, yes. Are there any further disclosures? Yes. Councillor Burton. Oh, sorry, I didn't catch the last one. Battle for Trees. Thank you very much. Thank you. And any others? Councillor John Barnes.
I think since we're going to talk about water, I ought to declare I'm a member of the Friends of Pure Water.
Thank you. And Councillor Proch.
This is to be very safe. I'm on the board of the Internal Drainage Board, a very important body for dealing with water, and I'm also a member of the Rother Environment Group.
And in that case, I think I must make the same declaration. The Romley Marsh Internal Drainage Board and the Environmental Group. Councillor Thomas.
Following up on that, I'm also a member of the Pevensey and Cookmere Water Levels Management Board and also a member of the Bexhill Environment Group.
I feel I can't advise members, but we are perhaps in danger of over-declaring. Are there any others, please? No others?
Oh, Councillor.
Councillor Cooper?
Yeah, just to declare I'm on the board of the Housing Company, item number 7. Thank you.
And Councillor Maynard's indicating, I believe.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Just to say that obviously if it comes up anything under agenda item 7, that I'm an executive member of East Sussex County Council, so not a prejudicial interest, but a personal one nevertheless. Thank you.
Thank you. And no others? No others. Thank you. And then we move. And again, I remind councillors to reiterate their interest at the time the matter is discussed. And we now come on to agenda item number 4, which are the Chair's communications, and that is me. Since the last meeting in July, of course, it's been summer and has been a very quiet time for attending civic functions and so on, until yesterday when I laid a wreath in Bexhill in connection with the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, and that was a very moving occasion and very good to see members of the services there with their medals who have actually served in the armed forces. So far, I haven't so far declared which charities I would be supporting this year. It's my intention to support the pet level independent rescue boat, which is, I see some smiles there, which is independent of the RNLI, but nevertheless is very highly trained and run by volunteers and is dependent entirely on voluntary contributions. And it operates at pet level in my ward, as you would expect. And I hoped that I'll be able to do something to help them. And also a charity of which I am a trustee, which is the Friday Older Persons Luncheon Club in Fairlight, often known as MOP, Marsham Older People's Project. So I would like to support those if I possibly can, and I look forward to your support in doing that. By way of invitations more generally, I have received several what you might call civic invitations. I would very much like to be invited to charities, clubs, societies, community groups, faith groups, churches, mosques, and so on. And those invitations haven't been forthcoming recently. So if anybody is listening and would like to invite me to add whether what I would add to their proceedings, I don't know, but I'm available and I would be very willing to be invited. So thank you. Agenda item number 5. Oh, yes, I do. Yes. And there is a change. I'm changing the order of the agenda. We shall take item number 9 last. And that is the human resources matter. Agenda item number 5, public question time. To answer questions from members of the public, if any, in accordance with paragraph 11 of the Council Procedure Rules. Time limit 30 minutes, which we shall definitely not be exceeding. And the first question is from Mr. Bernard Brown to Councillor Delaney. Mr. Brown, would you like to read your question?
No, I assume that the councillors have read the question, so I'm happy for it to be taken as read.
So you don't want me to read it out either?
No.
No. In which case we move swiftly on to the answer. Councillor Delaney.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Brown has been given a response that I put together, which I'm happy to read out if you would like me to.
I would like to hear it read out, yes. And perhaps a very brief summary of what the question is to give some context.
Well, it wasn't. I'll read the question. It wasn't a long one. What assurances, with examples, can be given that Rother District Council adequately and fully protects the most vulnerable from harm and abuse within the council's area of responsibility, including an explanation of procedures RDC deploys to minimise the risks of the systemic failures of denial and cover-up experienced by some other councils in England? So, in answer to that, East Sussex County Council holds the primary responsibility for meeting the needs of vulnerable people, while Sussex Police leads on investigating criminal activity. The Safer Hastings and Rother Partnership, co-chaired by Councillor Stanger, brings together statutory and voluntary groups to form a strategic response to reducing crime and promoting community cohesion. This work has become increasingly important given the malevolent voices in newspapers and on social media attempting to foment division and hatred in our society. Rother District Council plays an active role in this partnership, providing both leadership and administrative support. The partnership operates joint action groups for Hastings and Rother, where partners meet monthly to address current operational issues. Additionally, specialist groups focus on cuckooing cases, hate crime, and antisocial behaviour cases. These groups coordinate common actions and identify lead agencies for individual cases. Project Discovery investigates modern slavery and exploitation, incorporating many statutory organisations, including the Department of Work and Pensions and Home Office Immigration Services. Originally established in Rother and Hastings, this project has now expanded across Sussex. All groups maintain detailed minutes of meetings and agreed actions. We work across East Sussex as part of the East Sussex Community Safety Partnership, operated by East Sussex County Council. The head of the service serves as both a member of the East Sussex Child Safeguarding Partnership and the Sussex Prevent Board. Our community safety work is reported annually to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, chaired by Councillor Osborne. We must not become complacent or assume that abuse and maltreatment does not occur in Rother. Such crimes can happen anywhere, not exclusively in deprived areas or involving minority communities. It is essential that all staff, members and the general public understand how to report concerns. While it is impossible to definitively prove the absence of a cover-up, the risk is greatly reduced when officers from numerous statutory organisations properly share information to achieve trust and transparency. I have confidence in the objectivity and the integrity of the many officers across services involved in community safety work. These professionals often handle confidential and complex cases alongside partner agencies, resolving issues before they escalate to criminal matters. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Delaney. Mr. Brown, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Chairman. There's just a couple of moments of introduction and then the question. Okay. I thank Councillor Delaney for his response. The sexual abuse of any child is a stain on our society, and those who cover up such crimes are as guilty as the perpetrator. The reply says the risk of a cover-up can be minimised when all staff, members and the public know how to report concerns. Sadly, this very knowledge has, in historical cases, enabled a cover-up to be even more effective. A national report in 2019 from the Child Sex Abuse Inquiry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brown. You've really got to come to the question.
Well, I'm coming to the question, sir, but I do need to set the background first.
Well, that would be a separate question for December.
No, it's not. It comes to the same question.
Well, be very brief, please.
Okay, right. The reply says the risk of a cover-up can be minimised, and the reply says we must not become complacent or assume abuse does not occur in Rother. There is a case of historic sexual abuse of a minor in Rother, which has been covered up. The boy's disability meant that no further action could be taken.
I don't think we should be Mr. Brown, I don't think we should be going down this route, dealing with the specific individual cases. We can't.
I haven't mentioned an individual case, sir. I just said a case.
Well, you did. You haven't named the individuals, but,
no, and I don't intend to.
You have raised an individual case.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll just ask the question now, which is quite simply, will the council actually now start looking at some of the historic cases properly and openly? That's the question. And I'm sorry I put that to Councillor Delaney, knowing A, that he's a relatively new councillor and new to this post.
Councillor Delaney.
Thank you. What I would say to that, I mean, it's obviously very tricky if you're identifying people or discussing things where somebody could be identified. So I think we've moved over that fairly quickly. But certainly, if there's any concerns that you have in particular that about any issue, safeguarding or other, I'd be quite happy to meet you and talk through and go from there.
Suzanne, I appreciate that fully.
Yes, and thank you both. Thank you. The second question is from Rachel Hills to Councillor Killeen. Unfortunately, Rachel Hills can't be here tonight, and I think I will read her question out for her, and Councillor Killeen will reply. This is the question. As the colonnade units fall with it, this is to do with the colonnade, which is the little arcade in front of the Delaware Pavilion here in Bexhill on the seafront. As the colonnade units, their retail units, fall within the boundary of Bexhill Cultural Centre, there's a planning reference, BEX 15, would I be correct in assuming that future tenants will be required to demonstrate that their business will be working within and supporting this strategy? Councillor Killeen.
Yes, thank you. The colonnade lies within the Bexhill cultural area, allocated through policy BEX 15, as you mentioned, and that's of the adopted development and site allocations local plan from 2019. The local plan directs that the Bexhill cultural area will be the primary focus for arts, culture and tourism activities within the town. Policy BEX 15 would resist the loss of significant existing arts, culture and tourism uses within the area. The local plan also supports improvements to the quality of the public realm in the area, including the quality of the promenade, with the aim of creating a sense of place in keeping with the destination role of the seafront. BEX 15 is a planning policy, and it's only a relevant consideration when a planning application is made. The council therefore has no need to seek planning permission when letting its units at the colonnade, as no change of use requiring planning permission is proposed.
Thank you, Councillor Killeen. Obviously, there can be no supplementary question. Agenda item number 6, member question time, to answer questions from members of the council, if any, and I understand that there are no such questions tonight. So we move on to agenda item number 7, which is to receive the report and recommendations from Cabinet. To receive the report of the Cabinet on matters for determination by full council at its meetings, that's the Cabinet meetings, held on the 28th of July 2025, as under. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move the report from Cabinet held on the 28th of July to be approved and adopted.
And is there a seconder? Councillor Bayliss. I shall now call over the report. If the report is not reserved for discussion, it will automatically be approved without debate. If members want to speak to and or amend the report and recommendations, they must reserve the minute when I call out the minute number. If members wish to reserve an item for discussion, please indicate as I call over. First of all, 28th of July 2025, CB 25/15, Budget Outturn 2024 to 25, Revenue and Capital Monitoring and Productivity Plan Update. No one indicates. That is then accepted. Where's the other one? That was the only one. That was the only one. Yep. So we go to number 9, 8. Agenda item number 8. To receive the report and recommendations from the...
Sorry, Chair, I think I might have messed up.
yes. My apologies, Councillor. We should have voted on the report, which was not called over. So, all those in favour of accepting the report? And that is carried unanimously. Yes. Sorry, Councillor. So that brings us on to number 8. And that brings us on to agenda item number 8, to receive the report and recommendations of the Audit Committee on matters for determination by full council held at the Audit Committee meeting on the 21st of July 2025. Councillor John Barnes.
Thank you, Chair. I should like to move the recommendations of the Audit Committee to this council.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Gray, thank you. I shall now call over the report. If none of the minutes are reserved for discussion, they will automatically be approved without debate. If members want to speak to and or amend the recommendations, you must reserve the relevant minute when I call out the minute numbers. There are 2 on this occasion. 21st of July 2025, AC 2520, Revised Anti-Fraud and Corruption Framework. AC 2521, Audit Committee Annual Report. No one indicates. In that case, I put this to the vote. All those in favour? That again is carried NEMCON. Agenda item number 9 is deferred until later, which brings us on to agenda item number 10, which is to receive the report of the Chief Executive concerning changes in committee and cabinet membership. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move this report, which has got the changes that have come about by various member reorganisation. I would like to add at this, if I may, with regard to Councillor Coleman, if I may, just acknowledge
Indeed, yes.
my appreciation of the work that he has done since he's been a member of Cabinet and of this Council. And he will be retaining his position as Member of Council, looking after the residents of Sidley Ward. But during his term of responsibility, his area of anti-poverty strategy and the contribution he made towards that was met with national acclaim. Sam has completed his council work and various additional works while studying for his degree, which if I don't look to embarrass him in any way at all, he achieved a first-class honours in politics and creative writing. Sam has decided that embarking on his new career in education, he could not devote sufficient time to meet the demands of his cabinet role. However, he will continue to serve as a member of this council. I think we'd like to wish him every best wish on his new challenge, which I have every reason to feel he will be most successful.
Yeah. And you have a seconder for that. Councillor Bayliss. Councillor Bayliss got in first. Yes.
Can I add to...
Of course you may.
Yes, I would like to thank Councillor Coleman for all his hard work on this council. He's been an absolute credit to the Labour group here on Rother. And I know that his contribution to the overall communications for the Rother Alliance has been very helpful. His work is of an exceptional high standard. He's, through the work that he did on the anti-poverty strategy, he was invited to become a member of the Royal Society. So he has the honour of those letters after his name. He's also done exceptional work on equalities in his cabinet role. And I know that the people of Sidley thank him as well for his contributions, which he will continue to make until, obviously, we stand for re-election. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bayliss. Does anyone else wish to speak? Well, Councillor Coleman would like to say something.
Thank you, Chair. It feels like I'm listening to my own in memoriam there. It's a glimpse into the future when I'm one of those faces on the screen during the Oscars or something. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say good luck to Councillor Delaney, who's taking over my portfolio. I know Councillor Delaney to be a very capable person. I know through his work with the Bexhill Food Bank as an advisor that he's going to bring incredible passion and care and experience in terms of dealing with those socio-economic issues that run as an undercurrent through all of the equalities work on this council. And I know that through his work with the Trades Union Council in Bexhill and Battle and their recent campaign over the summer to tackle retail crime and shoplifting, that he will make an excellent community safety portfolio holder. So I wish him all the best. As other councillors have said, I have a new job and I had to make the decision of how I can best use my time outside of my new job. And that is, of course, representing the people of Sidley. So that is what I'm going to focus on for the rest of my time as a councillor. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you. Well, Councillor Coleman has actually said what I wanted to say with regard to welcoming Councillor Delaney to Cabinet. I know they've been working quite closely together with regard to the make-up of the job, and I know that Gareth will slot into this with the support of colleagues on Cabinet. Welcome.
And I'd very much like to associate myself with all the remarks that have been made so far and congratulate you. Thank you. Anybody else? No? In which case we will move to a vote. All those in favour, please indicate. That is carried, but I have to ask, are there any against? No. Any abstentions? No? That is carried. Thank you very much, councillors. We move to agenda item number 11, which was to have been a motion proposed by Councillor Stanger. Unfortunately, Councillor Stanger can't be here tonight, and having looked at the Constitution, together with the monitoring officer and the chief executive, we decided that this has to be withdrawn and it will have to be resubmitted in December when Councillor Stanger can be here and speak to it. So we move over from that. So agenda item number 12, and that reads, in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 13, consideration be given to the motion to Council which has been submitted by Councillor Burton as detailed in the agenda. As a reminder, motions can only be debated for a maximum of 30 minutes per motion. Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all my colleagues for all the time you have spent to look at my motion. There are so many demands on us as a council, so much to do in so many different fields, but I do feel for 30 minutes tonight it's worth your attention. We need to keep working at our relationship with nature. The national picture for rivers is poor. 15%, only 15% are in good overall health. Rother is no different. The Powdermill stream has been declared dead by citizen science. Pevensey Levels is deteriorating. As a Wealdon District Council meeting, the local councillor said he noticed that. Why are rivers so important? Biodiversity, drinking, transport, social and leisure. It's part of our natural ecosystem. What's going wrong? I think you know, but I'll remind you. It's getting polluted, microplastics, forever chemicals, sewage, agricultural runoff, and so on. Don't forget that between 60 and 80% of sea pollution is land sourced. That's why we need to act. We all know that national legislation, we can't influence that here in this chamber, but we can be clear at what we think is right and our intention. Wealdon, in July, passed the Rights of River motion, and that was based on the Universal Rights of Rivers, which is in your motion tonight. They're exactly the same. We want to believe in the same things as them. We want to highlight good practice. We can influence our climate action plan. We can endorse the Sussex nature recovery priorities. Rivers and watercourses are there. We can fulfil our duty under the Environment Act of 2021, and in liaison with the officers, they agree this can be done. We're not creating risk and we're not overcomplicating things. I urge you to support the motion. It will, as the Strandliner said, it will give us more clout. It will help communities get more funding for their work that they're undertaking. We can do something tonight to make this even more important. I urge you to support my motion, but I look forward to your discussion and comments.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder?
I do. So I'd like to second the motion, and I'd like to reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? Oh, Councillor Prochak first, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And can I congratulate both councillors for bringing these two motions to our attention. I'm very conscious of the River Rother. It goes right through Robertsbridge. And can I say, Pet Level Rescue actually rescued a heavily pregnant lady from her upstairs bedroom when we had the big flood in 2000. So they don't just do pet, they do other places. I found a lovely quote from Einstein, no less, and I thought it was very apt for both these motions. It says, "We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them." And I thought that was very apt. Let's try something different. And we had a wonderful evening in Robertsbridge, which was sponsored by Black Shed Gallery. It was poetry and music, but we had the wonderful Andy Dinsdale from Strandliners. And what he did is he brought us 2 samples of water from the River Rother, and he showed us how to test them. And very clearly, one was heavily polluted with ammonia and phosphate. The other was not. Guess where they were each from? One was from the edge of a farmer's field, and the other was not. So the phosphate and the ammonia runoff was from the farmland. So there is something we ought to do about all that, because we are one of the most nature-depleted countries in Europe. Driving back through France this holiday, my windscreen was covered with insects. Doesn't happen in this country. And so it's with pleasure and with anxiety, I think we would all support these 2 motions. And congratulations again for bringing them.
Councillor Hacking.
I very much support the idea behind the motion, which is obviously improving water quality. As Councillor Osborne and I represent a very rural ward that relies on farming, I just want to take your point about agricultural runoffs and hope that our approach as a council is very much towards partnering with the farming community and working with them on that rather than against them, because obviously they're incredibly important when it comes to producing the food for this nation. So I think if we could just keep that in mind as we're having this debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Barnes.
I'd love to support this motion, but I can't. I find what the aims are absolutely 100% right, and we certainly ought to be addressing in our local plan how we protect our rivers, how in fact as a friend of Beal Water, I know that pollution is going into a reservoir in massive quantities. So anything we can do to protect landscape, rivers, I'm totally 100%. I just think we're going down a false alley in the choice of means, because you cannot really confer a right on a river to flow without defining what you mean by flow. Do we, in fact, you're going to run into problems because human rights, they have a right not to be flooded. Do you dredge a river or do you not dredge a river? These are the problems, and to bring lawyers into this seems to me a counsel of desperation. I would rather rely on democratic mechanisms and this council than make this a matter for the courts. So it's the means that I oppose and not the end. And the end I support. Given that dilemma, I propose to abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Field.
Thank you, Chair.
I was very pleased to see this motion, and as you might expect from my role in the Cabinet, but for me the beauty of it was the fact that it is not prescriptive. It is not saying do this, do that. It is saying reflect it in the local plan. Have it as a policy of this council. And that, I think, gives us the freedom to protect the rivers, as indeed Councillor Burton. And I think we all recognise that pollution has destroyed so much of the wildlife and biodiversity, not just in the river itself, but on the banks and the areas that spread from it. So I have no hesitation in supporting this, because it doesn't tell us what to do. It says what must be our guiding principles, and that's the important thing.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne, then Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. I heartily agree with Councillor Barnes. I totally support every aspiration within this motion, and I totally support the fact that we have to take care of our rivers. But to use the word rights is to stray into just the wrong area. Human rights, even animal rights was controversial when it was first proposed, but human rights, minority rights, women's rights, these are moral and ethical questions. Now, you can't ask a river, does a river have a right to say, I don't want to produce hydroelectricity? Does a river have a right to say, I don't want my banks altered to mitigate flooding? It's just, at a time when the general public are becoming increasingly disenchanted with the way that politicians carry on and the language we use, I think we're in danger of alienating the very people we need to take with us. This is important. And it's so important we've got to get the language right. And I think to use the word rights for something like a river, and I think my remarks also go to the next motion, which is about trees. So I just quarrel with the use of the word rights, and I think rather than elevating the subject, I think it's in danger of making the subject a subject of ridicule by certain people, mainly the new politicians who are queuing up to say how loony current politicians are and how we've all got to do things differently. We're doing a very good job, but we can't afford to alienate people, and I worry about the use of the words rights in this motion. Thank you.
Yes, I think some people prefer the concept of guardianship, but no doubt Councillor Burton will come back to that later. Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Barnes and Councillor Byrne went along a similar sort of mental quandary to myself when reading this. And I was really trying to consider the idea of a river having rights. So like a river having a right to an articulated voice in the community. Would that mean we have to invite the river to all of our meetings? And I quite like the right to flow. That sounds quite cool. But actually, I think when you read this motion in the context that it's been put into, and perhaps right might not be the most apt phrase. I don't know. Perhaps you could use like protection. So like the following protections for rivers: protected in its ability to flow, protected in its essential functions. Maybe that might be an alteration that might be considered. But actually, I think when you take it in its context, it's not. We are not going to be passing into law these rights for these rivers, but what we are going to be doing is passing our support for better protections for these rivers. Though the motion, and I believe it's been taken from the motion that was passed in other councils, so that might be why this particular terminology is used. But I do agree, there is a bit of a sort of quandary about giving rivers rights and what that means, and you could go down that rabbit hole for quite some time, and you find yourself up against a river and, oh, I'm sorry, river, you have the right to flow, I cannot step across you. But I think when we read this sensibly and in the context, I think we all agree with the gist of it. So perhaps it could be amended a little bit, but either way, I support the intention behind the motion for sure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor... Oh, I'm told that Councillor Kirby-Green got in first.
Thank you. Taking on board all the comments tonight. I think we all realise that this is not going to change the law. But by passing this motion, we are sending a clear message that nature matters and healthy rivers are important to Rother. The current state of the rivers is a concern held by many residents across Rother, with many community groups undertaking projects such as the Wild About Burwash team, who are testing the water of the River Dudwell as part of their Rivers project. By passing this motion, we'll be sending a message to all those volunteers that give up their time that we share their concerns. For that reason, I'll be supporting the motion tonight.
And thank you. I now have Councillor Groner, followed by Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chair. I've just hooked myself on the chair. There we go. Well, this has taken away a lot of the things I was going to say. Is that better? Okay. I also had bugs on the front of my car in France and was shocked about that. And I also haven't seen a badger. Well, I saw a hedgehog for the first time in 20 years. And I was just thinking, so there's loads of problems with the environment, especially the number of species and eradication, and we all love fish and birds and mammals, so that's excellent. But I do think if we put things into writing, and especially the use of the word rights, I'm just going to echo, I think, what Councillor Barnes, what Councillor Byrne has said. It leads me that does become enshrined into law, then it's lawfare. And where's the lawfare directed? So will you have groups of people suing Rother District Council for failure to do things? Or, where does that end up? And it's not the intention. The intentions are great, and we love our very, very green district. But that is the thing. And so I am more minded, what is the role of the Environmental Agency? We do have the Environmental Agency. We do have water companies. At Fairlight, we work incredibly closely with Southern Water, having set up the Pathfinder project. We're incredibly concerned about the flooding for the residents downstream in Marsham. Every planning application that comes through our area is considered mainly in terms of water, river flow. The Future Landscape Trust received over £300,000 of support to slow the flow of water. So even free flowing of rivers, I'm not sure. I read a very good book by George Monbiot, and he said that rivers should probably not flow as quickly as they do now because people clear them too much, and they should have trees in them for, give grounds for fish and birds and whatnot. So, that's basically, I think we should put our support behind the Environmental Agency and see if there aren't ways to work more closely with them and lend them our support with the same view and the same objectives as set out in this motion. So I'll be abstaining, but I do support it from my heart, as it were, but not in writing.
Thank you. At last, Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm happy to support this motion, especially given that the Rother, to which this council is probably named, runs probably 300 yards past my house on the tidal section. It edges my patch in Peasmarsh, forms a boundary of Peasmarsh, runs into Iden Parish, runs through Playden Parish, goes past the front door of my house, and then goes out to sea between my other parishes of Camber and Rye Harbour. So I'm quite happy to support it. It doesn't always smell the best, I will be honest. Someone is putting something bad in there, sometimes, you notice. But that's it, so I'm happy to support it. But whilst I'm here, I haven't mentioned the River Breed, which basically runs along the back of New Winchelsea Road, so there's no one from Rye here. But recently there's work's been going on a lock gate over the sort of road, or under the road that goes towards Rye Harbour. And those they're being replaced. There's temporary lock gates which are leaking like a sieve. And the River Breed has probably got a foot of water in it, or it did last week. It might have a bit more now, given that we've had about 2 inches of rain. But it was critically low. And this is work's being carried out by the Environment Agency, letting the water levels plummet down to nothing. Fish are dying and everything else, which is terrible. So, the Environment Agency need to step up as well, to be honest. So there it is. I thought I'd mention that, but I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have anyone else indicating? Councillor McLaren.
So I'd like to thank everyone for that robust debate, and I'd like to pick up first of all on the concerns of Councillor Barnes and Councillor Byrne. And I must say, when it was first put to me, the idea of rights, I did have exactly the same reaction, trying to get my head around it. However, what I will say is I've had the opportunity to study this over the few weeks running up to this, and I have discovered that in other countries, they have made this journey. And, for example, in New Zealand, the river Whanganui has legal personhood. It has appointed guardians. And their legislature has worked out how to make it work. And there are people standing up for that river and looking at its holistic needs and working with all of those stakeholders to make sure that the best way forward can be found for everybody involved. And if you're interested, there's a link in the motion to go and read the Act. So I'm not saying that Councillor Burton and I have a ready-made Act in our pockets to say this should be passed, but it's not a dream, it can be done. And we want to be among those early voices who are joining together with our colleagues in Wealdon and in Lewis to say we want to be raising our hands, as many have said, to be a voice in that direction. And I really appreciate your quote, Councillor Prochak, about, if you keep on doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. And while we would love the Environment Agency and all of that to work, we just see that it's not enough. On the point that Councillor Hacking made, I myself represent a very rural ward, and I know that our farmers have done so much to invest in the environment. It's they who look after it, and we should, never mind just collaboration. This is all about partnering and learning from some of the evolving practices on many of our farms to support them to produce food and to take us forward as a district. The only other thing I'd like to mention is that we know that locally, Lewis and Wealdon, and further afield, Southampton City Council and Test Valley Borough Council have passed similar rights of rivers motions. And with this motion, we're part of a movement because we believe that our waterways can and must have better protection and deserve advocates who can speak for them on important decisions that affect them. And so I ask you all, please, to consider hard and support this motion.
Thank you. And I've just reminded myself I should have redeclared my membership, membership of the the Romney Marsh Internal Drainage Board and the Environmental Group. Councillor Burton, do you wish to exercise your right to reply?
Yes, thank you. Well, my colleague here has done a really good job of summing up some of your questions and your points, but I do think it is really important to emphasise that we are part of a bigger movement. The rivers in Rother do not just flow in Rother, they go further afield, and that's why we need to pull together to highlight this important area, and we can't change the law. I'm totally in support of working with farmers and regenerative agriculture. I'm sure that it's working together that we can prove that we can take much better care of our rivers in the future. So I urge you to support my motion, and I look forward to the outcome of this vote as printed on the agenda.
Well, thank you. Then we shall proceed to a vote. All those in favour, please show. And thank you. And those against? And those abstaining? So that was 22 in favour, 0, none against, and 6 abstaining. So that motion is accordingly passed. Thank you, councillors. And we now move on to agenda item 13. In accordance with Council Procedure Rule 13, consideration be given to the motion to Council which has been submitted by Councillor McLaren as detailed in the agenda. As a reminder, motions can only be debated for a maximum period of 30 minutes per motion. Councillor McLaren.
Chair, I'm proud to propose this pioneering environmental motion to this council today. We are a council that declared a climate emergency and have been recognised by Climate Emergency UK as the most improved district council in the country. We are a council that just passed a Rights of Rivers motion that will support our communities and environmental organisations in their vital work to protect and enhance our Rother waterways. And now we can be the first council in this country to pass a Rights of Trees motion to protect and enhance especially our most valued, precious and historic trees. As discussed already, we know that we do not have the powers to make laws or confer rights. But with this motion, we can declare our support for the rights of trees. We can bring this thinking into our revised local plan and our climate strategy action plan, and we can let our communities know that we support them to look out for and to speak up for the special trees that mean so much to them. So, Chair, the obvious question is, when we have tree preservation orders, why do we need this motion? Tree preservation orders are an important tool, and I've seen them used effectively in my own ward. But that said, the system of TPOs on its own is not enough. In June 2025, the Arboricultural Association published a report into the effectiveness of TPOs in England and found the legislation and the regulations to be unsatisfactory. Councillor Kirby Green told me that here in Rother, time and again, we see the TPO process being insufficient to protect our trees, with many people unaware of it and too often then disregarding it. This motion will not solve all the issues of tree protection in Rother, but it will send a message to our communities, organisations and parish councils that we support them as allies and advocates for our special trees. So where do we start? This motion prioritises trees that are seen as a heritage or cultural asset. An important example being the Crowhurst 1066U, which stands as a living link for our community with our history, going back more than 1,300 years. It is an ancient native tree, an iconic landmark, and an important natural monument. There are many stories about how the tree was involved in the Battle of Hastings. King Harold owned the manor of Crowhurst, and the Normans are said to have made bows from its wood. It means so much to the community of Crowhurst and its many supporters further afield. Unfortunately, some work was done last year that negatively impacted the roots of the tree. Crowhurst Parish Council, at its last meeting, agreed to support an application for personhood status for this tree, and I should explain that personhood is a term used for the provision of rights to natural assets. This motion welcomes their decision and invites them, together with the community of Crowhurst, to take on guardianship of the 1066U, to look out for it, to speak up for it, now and in the future. This matters for the tree, and it matters for the well-being of future generations to come. So this is a start, and the motion supports proposals from other communities for similar declarations in respect of other special Rother trees. I'm going to close with a quote that the Environmental Law Foundation gave me to share with you. We wholly support the desire of Rother District Council in its quest to see the initiation of rights prescribed for the 1066 yew tree. This is part of a growing global movement of earth jurisprudence, recognising that natural entities have the right to exist and flourish, that humans are part of nature and not separate from it. Rights of nature, your time has come. I urge you to support this motion. Chair, I move the motion as printed in the agenda. Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor. And is there a seconder?
I'll reserve my reply till later, please.
Of course. And Councillor John Barnes.
I really am going to renew my pleading for common sense. I fear I agree with Councillor Byrne that this is liable to actually blow back on the very issues that we care massively about. Let me explain a particular dilemma I have. Until 2021, I was a conservator of Ashdown Forest. Our duty was to protect the heathland and the gorse. Our enemy was the scrub, alder and trees that grew up instantly if the land was not properly managed. And the bird life that actually depended upon the gorse was adversely affected by the scrub forest, which you're about to give rights to. It's paragraph B seems to me to get us into a terrible tangle with this notion of personhood. Guardianship, totally in favour. We have a yew tree in Etchingham Churchyard, which I would love to see protected effectively. It's probably as old as the one in Crowhurst. But can we not find a way of not blundering into the notion of rights? I wish the world had not gone that direction, because I think you will find a terrible tangle with different people asserting that they are the guardians of the landscape. I look at Perch Farm, which is on my patch, and I see different forms of management in virtually every field and different forms of bird life. I do advise you all to read Adam Nicholson and his new book on birds, which shows how you have to manage the land in order to support the diversity of species. This could, wrongly interpreted, actually narrow biodiversity and be the enemy of quite a lot of species. I do beg you to think again, and particularly think about paragraph B, because that's where I find the great difficulty. I can support everything that's in C with no difficulty, and D very easily, but really paragraph B is going down an extremely dangerous route. And it is a tragedy, because trees are sentient. There's almost a better case for them than there is for rivers. But on the other hand, you do need different forms of landscape to support the varied bird life in this country. I'm going to have to abstain again. I don't want to vote against this, but I really cannot support personhood for trees.
Thank you. I just note for Councillors' information that paragraph B supports the introduction into law of legislation which will require those taking decisions affecting trees to have regard to the tree's rights to. It doesn't say there is an absolute right to any of those things, but those decision makers should have regard to it, which I think, as a mealy-mouthed former lawyer, I would say is not the highest form of consideration which has to be given. But no doubt there will be a right of reply and a seconder's speech to cover those points. And I have quite a list of members wishing to speak. Councillor Drayson first.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your explanation on paragraph B. I'd just like to rise to support actually Councillor Barnes, and I was very confused with this. If I'm supporting rivers, why wouldn't I support trees? Because surely it's the same. And I do support trees, but when does a shrub become a tree? We're talking about householders' gardens. I want to replace a tree in my garden. Am I allowed to? Will I get replaced, not get rid of? And that oak in Crowhurst, yeah, those bowmen would now be prosecuted, presumably, for making bows out of the tree. So I will, similarly to Councillor Barnes, abstain on this one. Thank you.
Councillor Clark first, then Councillors Coleman, Hacking, Osborne and Field.
Thank you, Chair. I support this motion because we all know how important trees are. Speaking generally, it was only a few years ago that 75 trees were planted in my ward in Pebsham, which was an initiative that we had. I think Councillor Gray was very much involved in that. So the Kids Council very much supports trees. And also in the past, we do have a tree officer. There have been occasions in the past where there's been a planning application and I've been concerned that healthy trees were going to be destroyed because the developer wanted that extra bit of land, and we've had to look into that and see whether these need to be protected. There are certain species of trees which are more rare than others, and so this council always has had a focus on trees in planning applications and other issues, and we want more trees, not less trees, do we? I mean, the principle of this motion is absolutely correct. You can play around with the wording, but the principle behind it, that we all want healthy trees, is there.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, I understand the quandary around the term rights, and I would hope that were this to come into law, those rights would be styled more as protections, and the level to which these trees had this personhood, and I don't think that's necessarily the best terminology, would be much less so than we have rights and personhood, for example. I do note in the actual motion the particular reference to trees that are heritage and cultural assets, and I think that's really important. And those declarations, like the one with that 1066U, and I agree with Councillor McLaren that the TPO process is not perfect. It doesn't work all of the time. It's often a cat and mouse game wherein a tree has come to the attention of officers as being important around the time that a developer is looking to put a planning application on that site, and it then becomes this game of can we get that tree protected before the developers decide to clear it out of the way for their planning application. And then there does still become these issues where trees are knocked down, potentially by developers or by landowners or by whoever has knocked them down, because they know that once a tree is knocked down, it's gone. And how effective or not our enforcement of those TPOs are, once that tree is gone, it's gone. It can't be replanted overnight. All of the oxygen, all of the years that tree has grown, and all of the benefits that we draw from those trees cannot be recovered. And so it is really important that we look at how we protect those trees, particularly those really important trees. And I don't think that anywhere in this motion says that you can't cut down a bit of shrubbery, or you can't remove trees in certain circumstances, or you can't take down some trees and then plant more elsewhere. I don't think there's anywhere in this motion that says we can't do that. But as the Chair rightly highlights, it's about having regard to those rights, to those protections for those trees, and a greater regard, because there isn't much regard to trees. And once they're gone, they are gone. And we do need them to survive and to breathe. So I think it is really important, and I fully support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hacking.
Thank you. So a few years ago, I had a really frightening incident in one of the big storms that we had, where I was driving along and literally by about this much missed a large part of a tree landing on my car. So I think just for us as councillors, it absolutely terrifies me, point 5, which is the right to not be willfully injured or damaged. And at no point should we be encouraging landowners to not manage their trees responsibly. Because if they then become a danger to the public because they were really frightened about injuring a tree because of this motion, I think we'd all feel pretty bad about that. So that line in particular is the reason that I won't be supporting this motion.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to support this motion, but I'm wondering if I should declare an interest or not. I've been a carpenter for the last 46 years. So I've probably cut more wood and more lumber and more trees than anyone in this room, quite possibly in the whole of Bexhill and the surrounding area as well sometimes. So, but no, no. I thought I'd just say that, just to sort of lighten the mood, really. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Councillor Kirby-Green.
So may I first start by thanking Councillor McLaren. I know she's put an awful lot of work into this. I love trees. I'm lucky enough to look out of my window at home and see various green oak trees that have been there for hundreds of years. Wooded rolling hills define my local ward. In fact, there are 272 square kilometres of ancient woodland in the High Weald National Landscape, the highest coverage in any protected landscape. We all know that as well as creating beautiful landscapes, they're good for the environment and for our mental health and for our well-being. In my experience, I believe that the TPO process is weak, and I support anything that goes some way to offering further protection, particularly during the planning process. So therefore, I'll be voting in favour of this motion.
Councillor Field.
Yes, thank you. People have said a lot of things about trees, because that's what this motion is about, which I completely agree with. There's also been a lot of talk about terminology and rights. And I can remember when men said it was dangerous and wrong that women should be paid the same amount for the same amount of work as men got. I have read that men said rights for women to vote were dangerous. I have further read that rich men in the 19th century thought it was dangerous and unsafe for poorer men to have the right to vote, let alone women. So I think the way we use the words is important, but this is not about giving rights, it's about giving protections. And we talk about rights because that is something people understand, actually. The tree has a right to live, not the undergrowth, and there's talk here about not doing willful damage to trees. Well, cutting down dangerous trees, cutting down diseased trees, pruning trees with dangerous branches is not willful damage. That is care. That is husbandry. That is not what this motion is saying, that we shouldn't do that. It is saying that where we have trees, they should be protected. And we've all sat in planning meetings, I hope, and heard how trees aren't protected, how whatever the protections appear to be on them, they are still cut down willy-nilly. So anything we can do to strengthen that, I think, is a good thing. And we know in Battle, the mayor has a plan to plant 1,000 trees. Wouldn't it be wonderful if he didn't need to plant 1,000 trees, because there are already lots of trees taking up the space? But he does, and the trees we have need to be protected. And if anybody doesn't know the Crowhurst oak tree, yew tree, it is absolutely magnificent. And I was really shocked when I discovered there was no protection on it whatsoever. But an interesting thing about this motion, it's not just what we see above ground, it's about what goes on underground. And anybody that reads about what grows on underground trees knows there's a huge ecosystem, and that as a communication system, and tree roots and fungi and other plant roots communicate and talk to each other. And they do no end of good for the soil, which promotes growth of other things, the crops that we eat. So damaging the trees damages that and undermines our ability to grow food. So yes, we must support this.
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first start by congratulating my colleagues on this motion, because I think it's a very forward-looking initiative and I welcome it very, very warmly. In relation to the points that have been made about the word rights, I think the first thing that strikes me about that is it does come as a bit of a surprise. And I think that's a good thing, because it makes you think. It makes you aware that there is a way of looking at things which is an extension of the way in which we have previously looked at things. So now we begin to think of nature itself as having rights. What does the word right mean? It's a sense of entitlement, isn't it? It's a register of social convention and morality. a sense of what we think is the right thing to do. And as we face a global warming and climate crisis, it's vital that we do all in our power to make sure that we protect ourselves against that, and hence the vital role of trees in that. And I want to take up the point that's been made by Councillor Field, because what has been established is that beneath every forest there is a complex underground web of the roots, fungi, and branches and bacteria which connect trees to one another. That it is, in a sense, the case that trees parallel human organisms and human sociability, and even, you can say, at the risk of becoming a trifle anthropomorphic, a sense of human caring. Because there's evidence that trees seem to care about their young. If one tree is threatened by caterpillars, the trees around protect themselves in the same way, a sort of tree version of NATO, you might say. So we've got a situation here where what goes on underground is extremely important for the protection of the climate. And there is evidence that if we look at urban trees, the reason why their lifespan is lower than that of other trees is precisely because this underground network is being neglected. So if we want to lengthen the lifespan of urban trees, we need to pay attention to that aspect of their culture. So that's why I think all the things that are under B are so important, because they set out the principles that looking after trees need in order to exist and to fulfill their functions. If a tree is valuable, it should be to do what a tree needs to do. And this motion sets out of that. Lastly, I'd just like to thank very quickly the people in our neighbourhood who look after trees. People like the Highwoods Preservation Society, the excellent work they do, the Bexhill Friends of the Downs. I'd like to say something about Councillor Gray, who has done so much to record trees within this area and to look after and plant trees. So I think it's very important to emphasise the community aspect to trees as well. So on all those grounds, I hope everybody here will support this motion, hopefully unanimously. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm very happy, actually, to support this motion. I particularly like B, number 1 under B, which is about exist and grow, because Councillor Rathbone-Ariel and myself have been working on a project to green up St Leonard's Road, a tree planting project, where we would like to see the road much more naturalised. We would like to plant trees that will grow in time and provide shade as the climate warms, and enhance the shopping experience in St Leonard's Road. So actually, the exist bit is really important to me because, of course, having devised a scheme, East Sussex County Council turned it down. We are appealing against that, and we are working with our county councillor to try and change East Sussex County Council's mind on that. But this would be a really ideal, if you like, strengthening of our argument in relation to St Leonard's Road. I'd also like to mention where you talk about what grows under the ground. We have a fantastic company in Rother District Council called Green Blue Urban, and they're based in Bodiam. I don't know which ward that is. It's probably somebody from, it's yes, Councillor Biggs's ward. But Green Blue Urban are they are an international company that does the most fantastic tree planting schemes in urban environments, and they have some really, really innovative sort of sub-cells which provide nutrition and water for urban trees. So, you know, we have two good examples there of where we can sort of affect change. So very happy to support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Rathbone-Ariel.
Thank you, Chair. It's not been mentioned so far, but Rother has the highest percentage of ancient woodland in the southeast at 15%. So this motion will go a long ways to preserve that. And I think that's something that we'd all like to see continue. Those trees preserved, the ancient woodland preserved. And I think in reality, this motion has probably come about because of two incidents that have happened in the news. one being the Sycamore Gap tree, and the other being in Enfield, where an oak tree got cut down, which is going to be part of Tottenham women's new football ground. And is that been in place and motion similar, especially in the Enfield case? Those trees might be there. So I support this motion and hopefully it goes to save and continue the healthy growing of the ancient woodland that we have in Rother. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prochak.
Thank you very much. Councillor McLaren's considerable work behind this motion was actually prompted by Crowhurst Parish Council. And I've got such respect and admiration for Crowhurst Parish Council because they have done such a lot environmentally. Their neighbourhood plan is absolutely green to the core, which we want to be, which in our local plan is absolutely threaded through there. And their environmental group, they do so much amazing stuff for a parish council. And as mentioned, this is about special trees, and it's prompted by the yew in that churchyard. And I think there had been a bit of damage to it, and this is about protecting. And it's not about the tree in your garden, it's about very special trees. And as the sycamore tree in Northumberland has been mentioned, and I think the two guys that did that damage said it felt as though the reaction felt as though they'd murdered someone, that it was actually had personhood. So there are trees that we respond to in that way, and I'm sure we all have in our wards, as already mentioned, one you can think of straight away that needs this protection. So I really applaud the motion, and come on, Rother, be brave, be a front runner, set the tone, don't be scared, vote with it.
Any other councillors indicating? Councillor Burton?
Thank you, Chair. Well, when Councillor McCarran asked me to second her motion, I wanted to do my research, that I was really confident in the words that I was going to say. And I must say that listening to the debate tonight has actually enhanced my knowledge, because I think there's a very knowledgeable, mixed group of people here coming up with very in-depth knowledge of the trees and the values of trees. So I think I am preaching converted, and what we've got a little bit stuck on is maybe the terminology, whether the word's rights as a capital R or a small r. Pleased that our chair highlighted the word have regard for, and the other very key bit is about heritage and cultural trees. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about special trees. And of course, there are lots of areas in nature are not doing very well. Biodiversity, that's been mentioned. Soil, that's really not doing well at all. Wildlife. But let's start to work on some of these issues and see what we can do together. Small steps, not big ones. I am going to mention the Sycamore Gap. I can't resist it. It was a loved tree by so many. But what happened? Did you know it didn't even have a TPO? It was also, inverted commas, only 300 years old, only. Well, my calculation means that's 7 generations of a family to get that far. So it is, when we say only, it's really not quite the right word. And in the court case, it was valued at £860,000. So it is significant in so many ways, socially, well-being, memories of people, etc. And lastly, I want to think about what residents say to me. And many residents feel that having a TPO, that all the ancient trees have got a TPO, and we know in this chamber that that's not true. Many residents think that a tree can cope with anything. We can do this, we can do that. Whereas we do have to prune carefully, do the right job, observe it carefully. That's what tree wardens do, and that's what this motion does. It's going to inspire the community to look around them at their ancient trees more carefully and talk about them. And lastly, that Many people think that everybody cares about trees. Well, they don't. The Sycamore Gap proves that that is not true, and they don't understand the real importance. So I would urge you to support this motion when you come for your vote.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor McLaren, write a reply.
So I'd like to thank members for this debate and the clear passion that you all have for the environment here in Rother. And, you know, I'd like to direct some remarks to Councillor Barnes, because you were very gracious in how you described your concerns with the motion. And I'm taking the positive out of it, that we can rally around the idea of guardianship. And these are all steps, and we don't know where this is going to go. But I'd be so proud if we could make this start on it together. I'd also like to get the chance to talk about Crowhurst Parish Council. As you all know, I was elected 10 minutes ago, and here I am. And Crowhurst Parish Council are the wind in my sails. Crowhurst Parish Council have, together with their tree warden, have really, you know, they've said, here you are, and this is what you must do. And they have done so much work in their neighbourhood plan. Biodiversity is at the heart of that community, and many of my other parishes have come to me to say, what can we learn from Crowhurst Parish Council? So I think it's very fitting that this motion centres on that tree in Crowhurst, but picking up on Councillor Rathbone-Ariels, which council is more appropriate to take this pioneering motion with all our ancient woodland, with our ANOB, with our SSIs? If not us, then who? The other thing I'd like to ask you is, as you consider how you're going to vote, I'd like to ask you to think about the future. And thank you, Councillor Thomas, for doing all my next bit for me about how we are learning more about trees, how they thrive, and what they need. And the science is revealing more and more. And Councillor Prochak shared with me the other day a recent study that shows that trees in Italy synchronized electrical signals during a solar eclipse, and that the older trees emitted the stronger signals. And this is my point. These examples illustrate how hard it is for any tree owner to keep up to date with the evolving science. And I hope that as we extend and broaden guardianship, we can help to bring more of the best and latest knowledge to help with the care of our precious trees. And we don't have all the answers right now, but nor did this council when it declared its climate emergency. And look what we've achieved and still plan to achieve. So let's be on the forefront of this wave for our legacy. And I urge you to vote for this motion as it's set out in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We then proceed to vote. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. And those against? None against. Those abstaining? And there are 7 abstaining. So 22 in favour, 7 abstaining. The motion is carried. Thank you all, councillors, especially the proposers and seconders. As I said earlier today, I thought, you know, very brave for such new councillors to take on such a task. It is quite daunting. I'd also like to say to those watching at home, of course, we didn't actually have the words of the motions up on the screens. I think that's something we're still working on. But should anyone be bemused at home as to what we were discussing, the Rother website, if you go to other services, committees, and get down into the agenda, you can see the wording there with the agenda reports pack. So, and with that, I think we reach the... Oh dear, the one we deferred. Yes, of course. That was agenda item number 9, wasn't it?
Chairman, sorry, point of order. On the last one, 22.7 is one too many. I presume it was 22.6.
As it was for the previous one.
As it was for the previous one, there's 28 councillors present.
Do you wish to recount?
It is carried, I think.
It's carried, but I do note the arithmetic involved. Right. Agenda item number 9, to receive the verbal update and recommendation from the Human Resources Committee on a matter for determination by full council at the meeting of the Human Resources Committee held immediately prior to this meeting. And just wait one moment for someone to leave the chamber. Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move that the verbal recommendation arising from a meeting held prior to this meeting this evening concerning the proposed new management structure in the context of LGR and further budget savings. Immediately prior to this meeting, it was adopted unanimously by the members of the Human Resources Committee, and this will go forward to be, the proposal is that it the Chief Executive and leader be authorised to proceed with the restructure, and it will come to full council in December for final validation.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Field. Councillor Kirby-Green seconds. Councillor Field wishes to speak.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually very uncomfortable that we're being asked to approve something that's only a verbal report when we have seen no papers. We are having an extraordinary meeting in a couple of weeks' time, and I would have thought it could have been discussed there. So we have a verbal report, and we're being asked to approve that report. We haven't seen any paperwork, and I just wonder, are we constitutional?
Councillor Oliver.
I would add that the report is actually on ModGov, and it's this report here, which I've got a paper copy of. So it is available to all members.
If I could further ask then, why is it verbal?
Well, it's a report from the meeting which has just happened, but the report which the committee was considering was as printed in the agenda.
On the basis there's a significant amount of work to be undertaken between now and coming to full council in December.
Well, the Chief Executive would like to explain.
Obviously, the meeting happened just before this one, so there was a verbal update to say that the HR committee had approved the recommendations in the report. If we want to discuss the paper, we need to move into closed session.
And is there a seconder? Oh, yes, yes. Yes. Shall we proceed to a vote, councillors? Well, Councillor Oliver, can you answer that question?
Yes, we're actually voting on the basis that the Chief Executive and myself will be authorised to proceed with the restructure, which is actually set out in a report that's available to you all. So from that point of view, it wasn't debated at the HR committee because we felt that this was the right way forward. It's going to save the council money. It's going to give us a leanness with regard to where we need to have management level. And that's really what I want you to confirm, that we can go ahead and deal with this.
So why is it come in front of the council then, and it's not just dealt with in the normal HR ones where I've sat with you and we've appointed somebody?
So this paper particularly concerns the resolution from full council that the chief executive and the leader of the council are authorised to proceed with the restructure. If that goes through tonight, we will then have a senior officer appointments panel, which is what you've set on before, Councillor Groner. So that will set that process in motion. We will then come back on the 15th of December there's a statutory role involved, and we will designate to that statutory role on the 15th of December. That's as much as I can say without moving into closed session.
Councillor Barnes, John Barnes.
I think it is helpful, and I'm taking it is true, that HR have made no amendments. They've simply approved the paper that was in front of them, because that paper was available to members, but obviously the minutes of the meeting are not.
And Councillor Oliver has nodded to that, and I was present at the meeting myself. Councillor Field.
Under those circumstances, it would have been very helpful if the agenda had referred us to the paper, went to the HR committee, because as it stands on the agenda, I haven't got a clue what it is I'm supposed to be voting for or against.
Well, Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Chair. Just to make sure the clarity is here. So the motion went to HR committee and has been agreed by HR committee. It is a confidential item, but it is available to all councillors and has been available. We are now, based on the verbal update, the HR committee have made no amendments and have approved that report. We are now giving the authority to proceed with it, with the knowledge that the outcome of it will return to full council in December, at which point, if we have any issues, we can raise them then. That seems clear to me. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And I can confirm the Chief Executive is nodding as you speak. I hope that answers councillors' questions. The papers are available to councillors to read. That is the recommendation. Shall we take a vote? Those in favour, please indicate. And all those against? Abstentions? Three abstentions, but that is carried overwhelmingly. Thank you, councillors. And now I think we really do come to the end of the meeting. It is about 4 minutes past 8, and the meeting is now closed. Thank you.